Let's go and talk about divisibility rules that you need to know. Now, when we're trying to determine if a number is divisible by another, and we're dealing with smaller numbers, a lot of times we can just do that division in our head. But once we start working with 2-digit or 3-digit as well as 4-digit numbers, to be able to determine if a number, anything from 2 through 10, is divisible by that number, can get a little bit more. Let's go and talk about divisibility. Now, when we want to determine if a number is divisible by another number, a lot of times we'll just do the division in our head. But once we get to 3-digit and 4-digit numbers, doing that math can be a little bit more difficult. So there are some divisibility rules that we can use to help do that math very quick in our head. And in this video, that's exactly what I want to do. I'm going to go through the divisibility rules for 2 all the way through 10. So therefore, you can become a master and quickly identify if a number is divisible by another number. Now, I'm going to go through these rules as well as work through an example as well as a non-example. But if you want to print out this worksheet of exactly what I'm doing, so therefore you can follow along through the video, I'll put a link in the description down below that you can go ahead and download. Or if you're one of those students that it just takes a little while for it to stick, or you want to see things multiple times, maybe you want to print it out and put it in your notebook, then go ahead and download it, print it, and you can go ahead and keep it, because I'm going to tell you, my handwriting using this tablet is not always the best, but I'll try to do my best for you. So let's go and talk about the divisibility rules, and let's start with the number 2. So to determine if a number is divisible by 2, all we simply need to look at is the last digit. If the last digit is even, then we know that number is divisible by 2. Now, again, let's go through what are the even numbers. So we got 0. Well, 0 is not really even or odd, but if it's divisible by 0, that works. So 0, we have 2, 4, 6, as well as 8. So again, just look at the last digit. So let's go through an example. What if I had 148? Again, we look at the last digit, which is 8. We know 8 is going to be even. So therefore, this number, 148, is divisible by 2. On the contrary, if we look at a number, for instance, like 231, we look at the last digit, we say, hey, that last digit 1, that is not an even number, that's an odd number. So therefore, this is not going to be an example of divisible by 2. Now let's go and move to the digit of 3. So when we want to determine if something is divisible by 3, all we're simply going to do is take a sum of the digits, and the sum of the digits needs to be divisible by 3. So divisible, I don't even know what happened. Divisible by 3. See if I got enough room. Good. So the sum of digits needs to be divisible by 3. Whew, I don't know why that's so hard for me to say that. So let's go and take a look at an example here. What if I had 1,047? Now again, all we're simply going to do is add up the digits and see if that number is divisible by 3. So we'll do 1 plus 0 plus 4 plus 7. So 1 plus 0 is going to be 1, plus 4 is going to be 5. 5 plus 7 is going to equal a 12. Now we know that 12 is divisible by 3, right? It goes in there evenly without a remainder. So that number is 4, but it doesn't really matter what that number is. We just know that 12, our sum of digits, is divisible by 3. So therefore, that this number 1047 is divisible by 3. Now let's take a look at another example. What if I had 149? Now this would be a confusing one because a lot of students will look at the last digit and they say, hey, I know that 3 evenly divides into 9, so this is probably divisible by 3. But again, the divisibility rule says add the digits up and make sure that number is divisible by 3. So if I go and do that, I do a 1 plus 4 plus 9. So 1 plus 4 plus 9, so 1 plus 4 is 5. 5 plus 9 is going to be a 14. Now, 14 is not evenly divisible by 3, or divisible by 3. I don't know why I say evenly. Like 3 divides into 14, but there's going to be a remainder, right? So therefore, we can say that this number, 149, is actually not divisible by 3. Now let's go and look at the number 4. So if I want to determine if something is divisible by 4, what I want to do is look at the last 2 digits. Okay, so the last 2 digits can be 2 things. So they can either be 0, 0 or divisible by 4. Now, here's where a little things, kind of get a little tricky. So divisible by 4. Even when we're dealing with bigger numbers, if something is like divisible by 4, even like when you're taking 2-digit numbers, that can sometimes, be tricky. So there's a couple ways that we can do this. One is you should know, like even the higher numbers, anything like above 60 to 100, you should know that 4 times 10 is 40. 4 times 20 is going to be 80. So just kind of work through multiples of 4 in that range to determine if it's going to be divisible by 4. Okay. However, there's also another way that we can go about it, and that is just going to be using division. Because if you can divide something twice by 2, then you know it's going to be divisible by 4. So let me go and show you in these examples, and you can see what I'm talking about. So the first one, if I have a 212. Now for this one, it's rather simple because if I look at these last 2 digits, I know, example I did over here, 12 is going to be divisible by 4. So this one, it works out good. Okay. But let's go ahead and use this divisibility idea just so we can kind of understand exactly, dividing by 4. I could divide this number by 2, right? So if I divided by 2, I would get 106. And if I divide by that 2 one more time, I would get a 53. Now, this is important because that's actually what the answer is. 212 divided by 4 actually is going to be a 53, right? So therefore, that will actually give you that divide, or that'll give you the quotient if you were to divide 212 by 4. But let's go and take a look at another example. And again, 2 different ways to kind of approach this. So what if I had 198? Now, again, a lot of students sometimes will look at 98 and be like, I don't know, does 4 go into it or not? Now, hopefully, 4 is going to go into 100 25 times. So if you subtract 4 from 100, that'd be 96. So I can tell that 98 is not going to be divisible by 4. But let's go and take a look at it another way. I need to be able to divide this by 2 twice. So if I divide this number by 2 once, I'm going to get a 99. And then you see, I cannot divide this evenly by 2 again, right? So therefore, we can see or understand that 198 is not going to be divisible by 4. Now, number 5 is going to be one that a lot of students will probably just remember. We'll add it in here because it's easy. But number 5, all we simply need to do is look at the last digit, right? So all we need to understand is the last digit is a 0 or a 5, right? So this one's pretty, simple and self-explanatory. So if I have 215, obviously the last digit is 5, we're good to go. If I have another example of 5,123, again, we don't care about the first digit, we only care about the last digit, right? So this is an example or a good non-example. Now let's go and look at the number 6. So for number 6, what we have to have is an even number, as well as the sum of the digits has to be divisible by 3. Okay, so it has to be even, and then the sum of digits must be divisible by 3. Okay, so let's go and take a look at some examples and we can see in this case. So if for this one, what if I had 7,182? Okay, now we know the last digit in this case, we know the last digit is even, right? So we say, all right, so we have an even number, right? To determine something's odd or even, just look at the last digit. So we know it's even. Now let's go ahead and determine if the sum of all of our digits is going to be divisible by 3. So I do 7 plus 1 plus 8 plus 2. So 7 plus 1 is going to be 8. 8 plus 8 is 16. 16 plus 2 is going to be an 18. So that equals an 18. And what do we know about 18, ladies and gentlemen? 18 divided by 3, we know is equal to 6. So therefore, that works out. So therefore, 7,182 is divisible by 3. Now let's go and take a look at another number. What if I had 124? Again, a lot of students will look at this. They say, hey, I know 3 evenly divides into 24. So yeah, that's probably divisible by 3. But unfortunately, we're not looking at the last 2 digits to see if it's divisible by 3. We want to make sure the number is even, which again, the last digit is 4, so we're good to go. But then we want to take the sum of all the digits, 1 plus 2 plus 4, and make sure that number is divisible by 3. So that's going to equal a 7, and 7 does not evenly, or 3 does not evenly divide into 7. So therefore, we can say the 124 is not divisible by 6, right? So again, divided by 3, but we want to make sure if it's going to be divisible, divide that sum by 3, and that will tell you divisibility of 6. Now, 7 is going to be one of my favorites. And it's just one of the like cooler tricks. Like all of these, like they're kind of connected and everything else, but I think 7 it just stands out, and it's one of my favorites to just kind of remember and also to teach students. So for number 7, all we're simply going to do is double the last digit. Okay, so you're going to take the last digit, you're going to double it, so double last digit, and then subtract from remaining numbers, or subtract from other numbers. And this one is kind of hard to explain, so we really need to make sure we do it. To subtract from other numbers, and then that number needs to be divisible by 7 or get a 0. So other numbers, then that difference, so the difference must be a 0 or divisible by 7. Okay, so this one's cool. You can like show off to all your friends and even your teacher, that might even your teacher. Like a lot of times when I was teaching, actually, I didn't even remember this or even know how to do it. So it was something that didn't come to years of me being a teacher that I could quickly understand, remember, basically applying this rule. So let's go and take a look at some numbers. In this case, I have 392. Okay, so again, all we're simply going to do is we're going to double the last digit. So we're going to do 2 times 2, right? So you 2 and then double that digit, which is right there, and that's going to equal 4. Now what we're going to do is take 39 minus 4. Actually, let's do this horizontal. So 39 minus 4. 39 minus 4 is equal to a 35. Is 35 divisible by 7? Yes, it is. So guess what? 392 is going to be divisible by 7. So that's something, ladies and gentlemen, without trying to do multiplication in your head, like you can easily quickly do that math and determine if something is divisible by 7 or not. Now let's go and take a look at another example. What if I had 1,555? How can I determine if that's going to be divisible by 7 or not? So again, take my last digit, double it, so 2 times 5, and that's going to equal a 10. Now I'm going to subtract the 10 from 155. So I do 155 minus 10, and that is going to give me 145. Now, you might be thinking, well, I don't know if 145 is divisible by 7. Well, think again, use power of tens. 7 times 10 is 70. 7 times 20 is going to be 140. If you add another 7 to that, which would be 21, you're going to get 147. So you can see, ladies and gentlemen, that this is not going to be divisible by 7. All right, now let's go and work on the number 8. Now, the number 8 is very, very similar, just like we did with the 4. All we're simply going to do is look at the last 3 digits. And if we have 0, 0, 0, or that number is divisible by 8, then we can determine its divisibility. So we're going to look at, so we could say the last 3 digits is 0, 0, 0, or divisible by 8. Now, again, this one can be divisible by 8. Now, this one can be difficult, especially when you're dealing with like really, really big numbers, because like I know 8, how am I going to know if I don't know. Well, let's go through some examples if we're going to determine if something's divisible by 8. So let's go and take a look at 392. Okay. And so you might say, well, Ms. McLogan, it doesn't end in 0, 0, 0. So now I got to somehow determine if 392 is divisible by 8, right? And you could do some multiplication in your head and kind of see multiples of 8, 8 times 10, 8 times 20, 160, but again, going back to what I taught about 4, if you divide by 2 3 times, that's the same thing as 2 to the 3rd power, which is 8. So what I like to do to determine if this is divisible by 8 is just keep on go ahead and dividing by 2. So if I take this number and divide it by 2, right, that's going to give me 196, because 190 be 380, and then I have 12 more. Then if I take that number and I divide that by 2 again, I'm going to get a 98. Now again, to make sure this is divisible by 8, all I need to do is divide this one more time, right? And if I divide 98 by 2, that's going to give me a 49. So I can now determine that divisibility, we're good to go. Now let's take a look at another number that's very similar, that it would make sense it would be divisible by 8, but it's not. So that'd be a 364. Again, the mistake a lot of students will look at is they just look at the last 2 digits. and say, hey, 64 is divisible by 8, but let's kind of go through that rule again of dividing by 2. So if I divide by 2 once, right, I'm going to get 182 because 180 times 180 is 360, right, and 2 and 2. Then if I divide by 2 one more time, I'm only going to get a 91. I can't divide that a third time. So therefore I can determine if it's not divisible by 2 3 times or 2 cubed, then I know it's not going to be divisible by 8. All right, now let's go and take a look at the number 9. So to determine if if a number is divisible by 9, all we're simply going to do is take the sum of the last 3 digits and make sure that number is going to be divisible by 9. So it's going to be the sum of the last 3 digits. I'll write it like this. 3 digits is divisible by 9. By 9. Okay, so let's go and take a look at some examples. In this case, let's do 171. So again, all we're simply going to do, guys, is take 1 plus 7 plus 1. So 1 plus 7 is 8, plus 1 is going to equal a 9. Obviously, ladies and gentlemen, we know 9 is going to be divisible, 9 evenly divides into 9, so therefore we can say that one is good to go. What about this one? What if I had 3,479? Again, that last digit is 9. A lot of students will look at that and say, it probably looks good, right? But again, let's follow the rules. 3 plus 4 plus 7 plus 9. So 3 plus 4 is going to be 7. 7 plus 4 is a 14. And 14 plus 9 is equal to a 23. I knew I was going to run out of space. So let's go ahead and move that over. Sorry about that. So that is equal to a 23. And ladies and gentlemen, we know 23 is not divisible by 9. So therefore, that's how we can determine if that's not good to go, right? And the last one is going to be the number 10. Again, probably should just keep the digits from 2 to 9 because for the number 10, all you simply need to do if something's divisible is the last digit is going to be 0, right? So that one's pretty easy. Most students kind of remember that. So again, if this was helpful for you, then please make sure you go ahead and download the worksheet, not the worksheet, the cheat sheet that I have for you. So therefore you can print it out and never forget it. Make sure you go ahead and download this cheat sheet so you have a clean, nice version that you can keep and always remember by your side. And with that, I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.